Hi, this is Ricky, and if you want to make multicolored prints like this, I'm going to show you how. Instead of using the pause at height, we are going to use the Filament Change plugin. So I guess just some prerequisites. I have an Ender 3 V2, and I am running the Gyres firmware. I don't know if you can see that. And one of the things that I like that it does is under the control, I have some advanced settings. So one of the things that I did is I changed my loading length to 370 and my unloading length to 425. So that means when I load and unload filament, it pushes through 370 millimeters, and when it unloads 425 millimeters. So knowing that, I just finished this print. So the black is the current filament that it is pulling through. So I need to change out the black and replace it with white. So the same G-code that I use in Cura, we're going to do the filament change. So the first thing that I need to do is go to Control and go to Temperature, and then heat up my hot end. This is probably what most of you already do. So I heat mine up to 195. And then as soon as it reaches that temperature, you push the release lever on your extruder and then you pull out the filament. That's how I've done it for years. But with the Gyres firmware, it introduced a neat setting called Change Filament. So here, I can click Unload Filament. Let's get this out of the way. So when I click Unload Filament, it's going to say, hey, wait a minute, you're in the middle of heating, no big deal. As soon as it reaches 195, it's going to raise the gantry up, and then it's going to pull the filament 420 millimeters out, and I'll be able to pull it out and put in the white filament. I can almost do this one-handed, while one hand holds the phone and records, while the other does most of the stuff. So we'll wait until it reaches 195. Okay, it reached 195. It raises up the gantry and it starts pulling the filament out. So now that it's finished, one-handed, I just grab the filament, I pull it out, and then now I'm going to replace it with the white filament. All right, now that I have the white filament inserted, I only have it just until it reaches the Bowden tube. I'm going to go to my menu, and now I'm going to click Load Filament. And now you're going to see it's going to pull 370 millimeters of filament in. The reason that I picked that number is towards the end, maybe about 10 millimeters or less, the extruder kind of slows down. That's pushing it way too fast for my hot end to melt. And so just about the time that it reaches the hot end is when it slows down, and it only purges a little bit. But using the filament change, this makes it much easier to purge rather than me having to hold on to the gantry and push the filament through. So there it slows down, and then I look underneath here and you'll see it's pushing out the black filament. You can see that. And then the white filament's just now starting to go through. It's kind of gray. So I like to come over here and it says, do you want to purge more filament? I'm going to click confirm, and then I go back over here. Usually I have to do this once or twice, and then now I can see that it is purged just about all of the black filament and only white filament is going. So now we can go to Cura, and I can show you how to set this up in Cura. All right, I have Cura 5.2.1 opened up, so I am going to load the model. So it looks just like this. And what I need to do first is I need to slice it and go up here to preview, and I need to see where, right there, I need to see what layer do I need to switch the color from white to black. So layer 7 isn't it. Layer 7 is the last layer I want white to be, and then layer 8 is the layer that I want to change the filament. Okay, so after you figure out what layer, and I need it to change at layer 8, you're going to go up to Extensions, and then go down to Post-Processing, and then Modify G-Code. Just about every tutorial video tells you when you add a script, you're going to use the pause at height. I like the filament change much better. I think it's a lot easier. So for the layer, it's going to be layer 8. That's where I want it to change. Here, I went in and changed the script a little bit. The original retraction distance was 300, but I know on my printer setup that 425 completely retracts the filament all the way. Leave everything else at 0, and then close this out. You'll notice that I have a script here, so I'm going to click Slice. And I know that here is the model, and I know at layer 8, it's going to run the filament change script. So I'm going to change out the white, put in the black, and then it's going to continue printing. So all I need to do is hit Print with Octoprint. All right, it looks like it's just about finished with layer number 7. Now you can see it's going to lift up the gantry. It's going to park the head at 0, 0. And then if you notice the extruder motor, now it's going to back out the filament 400 millimeters. This is what the screen says. Still doing its thing. It's backing out the filament still. Okay. Now on the screen, it's saying to insert the filament and press to continue. Well, I still need to take out the white filament and then insert the black. So I'm going to take out this white filament. Just going to cut the end real quick. All right, I'm going to grab my black filament and feed it through. Just get it started. So on the EasyR extruder, I put the filament until it just enters the bowden tube. All right, if you take a look at the screen, if you don't switch out the filament fast enough, the change filament has a really neat feature where it keeps the bed heated, but it turns off the heater on the heat block. So I'm going to go ahead and hit continue, and then it's going to say, hey, wait a minute, the hot end isn't hot enough, so it's going to go ahead and heat up the hot end. All right, once the hot end reaches its temperature, once you insert the filament, I've already done that. So I'm going to click continue. And then what you'll see is the extruder motor going pretty fast as it is pushing the black filament all the way through the bowden tube. And what's nice is how I have it set up is the last, I don't know, 10 millimeters or so, the extruder motor slows down. This you're just going to have to play with to get yours set up the right distance, because at first I had the number too high and it was clicking. It was trying to push out filament faster than the hot end could melt. So when it gets to about the last 10 millimeters, notice how it slowed down. And then if you take a look at the extruder, you can see it start to push out some of the white filament, and there comes the black. So what I usually like to do is, it says, do you want to purge more filament? Yeah, I usually purge once, maybe twice. So I go back over here. It's going to push most of the white out. And as soon as it's done, I'm going to pull this out. And then I'm going to click cancel because I don't want it to do any more. And it immediately goes and starts printing again. But now it's going to print with the black filament. All of the design. I really like this method of changing the filament rather than the pause at height, because I'm not messing with the gantry so much. It automatically retracts the filament, and all I need to do is just pull that filament out and put the new filament in. Sometimes what's happened when I've done this is I'll accidentally bump the gantry, or I'll rest my hands on it, not even trying to, and the Z motor isn't locked in place, and it'll slide down just a little bit. With this method, I'm not pulling the filament out, I'm not pushing it in. The extruder motor does all of that. So I think using the change filament G-code is a lot easier and more simple than the pause at height.